I'm joined once again by celebrity wedding planner Tara Fay, this time to talk about one of the most sensitive issues when it comes to a wedding, money. Tara, where do you begin when it comes to a budget for a wedding?
What I think the most important thing that two people can do is at the very beginning sit down and make their list of their ideal wedding. Okay. So what I would say to them is both of them independently make a list of the top 5 things, I'm big into the fives, top 5 things that they would like about to have in their wedding, and then the top things that they don't want to have in their wedding.
And should that be realistic? Like, should it be ideal, like as in dream world, or should it be thinking about budget at the time?
It shouldn't be budget oriented at the beginning. It should be what ideally they would like to have, what they've always thought about having for their wedding. Okay. And then also the things that they don't want. And then they should put the list together, see where it matches, see where it doesn't. And the things where they don't match and what they like are the optional extras. And then what they would say is, okay, how do you go about spending the money or formulating the budget? Well, they'll say, well, like, how much realistically would they like to spend? And each of them, again, could have very disparate ideas on something like this. How much do they think it's going to cost their ideal? And, where is that money going to come from? Now, obviously, years ago, the traditional was the father of the bride or the bride's family paid for the wedding. Sometimes that still does happen. But realistically now, what you will find is that every different member of the family at different occasions will be contributing to different parts, and also friends sometimes can contribute to parts. So sometimes the groom can pay for all of the wedding, sometimes the bride's family, sometimes everybody's family will be contributing to it. So I think one of the things is to see how much realistically you want to spend, because it is once in a lifetime, an occasion, but you don't want to spend the rest of your life paying for it.
True.
So it's really important as well to remember that whoever puts money into it becomes a stakeholder in that wedding.
So if daddy's contributing thousands and thousands, then he might have a say for those thousands.
Absolutely, and I think it's something very important that the couple to talk about at the very beginning, that if they are going to take the money, what is wanted in exchange. And it is a very difficult conversation for people to have, not only with each other, but also with their parents or whoever is giving them the money. But I think to avoid misunderstanding later or any bad feeling later, or anything else that can happen. And a wedding is a minefield of emotions. And often, what can happen is that people will say things in the heat of the moment and they can never take them back.
Right.
So I always say to people, don't leave something until the week of the wedding to say to somebody else, because it's just going to blow into a row of super proportions and you can never come back from it. So, have all of these conversations at the beginning and say, if we take this money from you, we'd be very happy to take it, but what conditions does it come with? And some people will, can be quite offended and go, well, there's no conditions. But like, how many people do you want to invite?
Yeah.
And they'll, like parents as well will always automatically think, well, that's not a condition. I'd be inviting people anyway. So I think it's very important that they decide at the beginning, like how many guests each side are going to have, how many guest parents are going to have, are they contributing towards this? If one side is going to contribute more than the other, are they going to want more guests because of that? So have all of these conversations before you even start this whole planning process, and it'll make things a lot easier along the way.
Okay, and I assume even the bride and groom need to be on the same page in terms of how much the bride wants for her dress. Even that might be an argument. I'd seem there'd be different things. They'd each want different things and prioritise them differently.
Completely. And also as well, that this is where sort of those other things that are outside the main list will come into play, so that, the top 5 things that the bride may have had that she wants to have for her wedding may be different to the groom. So maybe the 2 at the beginning that link in, that are the same. Maybe one of hers is her dress. Maybe something that he wants is this most amazing band or fireworks display. So you'll have to decide, like, if the bride wants this most amazing dress, is that coming out of the central pot of money, or is she paying for that herself? Like, a lot of times I'll have where there'll be like 5 different budgets floating around. There'll be a budget that the bride's father will see. There'll be a budget that the groom is seeing. There'll be the real budget that only the bride is seeing. Or, sometimes she'll say to a florist, well, I want my dad to think that the wedding flowers cost this, or the groom to think that the wedding flowers cost this, and send me the rest of the bill. So that she'll be paying the supplement.
There's deception going on.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. If somebody wants to, if that's the way they want to do things, that's up to them. It's not up to, somebody else to be telling them how to run their life. But I mean, sometimes, they will have to decide, do they want to spend 1,000 on their dress, or do they want to spend 5,000? And do they want to be honest with the groom or their family or their bridesmaids about that amount of money?
Okay. And I assume deciding before you start telling these lies from the start yourself, besides having the conversations with everybody else, decide what you're going to be lying about.
But also decide if you're going to lie to yourself as well, because that's a big thing as well. That, like, sometimes you'll find that brides will buy 2 or 3 pairs of shoes for the wedding day, and they'll go, somebody who, did you not already buy those shoes? No, I don't think so. Sometimes they can be quite sort of, forgetful themselves and file it away because they don't want to think about how much money they've spent on the wedding or on their accessories or on a particular part of the wedding. And definitely decide ahead of time how much you want to spend on a total and then how much you want to spend on all of the different elements. So if the two of you have thought that the music is the most important part of the wedding itself, well then that's what you want to spend the money on. If you want to have this most amazing honeymoon that you've always ever dreamed of, well maybe put money towards that and only have a really small wedding. Some people maybe, when you're talking about how much you're going to spend on honeymoons, will maybe go for a week away somewhere and maybe they'll save up and go 6 months later, a year later. Who's to say that your honeymoon has to be the day after your wedding?
I think a lot more and more people seem to be going away like way later into the year. I've been to a few weddings where they go a year later. They go on the honeymoon.
Sometimes maybe it doesn't suit. Maybe they've had to take a week off before the wedding, and work at the moment, people don't want to be taking huge chunks of time off work.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes more sense for them to go a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. They can go whenever they feel like it. It's their honeymoon, it's their holiday. It's up to them to recreate that.
And something else to look forward to, I suppose. You've got the big dates to look forward to.
Yeah.
Why not split it?
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks a million, Tara, for filling us in on your budget tips.
Sure, you're welcome.